She laughed before the witness even finished spelling her name, not a nervous laugh. It was the kind wealthy people use when they believe a person in a work uniform has forgotten their place. Victoria Sterling leaned toward her attorney, looked across my courtroom at an older woman in a faded navy coat, and said, "That is her witness? The woman who polishes my mother's silver." The gallery went silent. Ruth Coleman did not respond. She only tightened both hands around a small black notebook. Victoria kept smiling. She thought Ruth was harmless. She thought a housekeeper's memory could be dismissed as gossip or confusion. She thought the woman beside the plaintiff had no idea what happened in the upstairs dressing room. But I already knew why Victoria laughed. I knew what Ruth had seen. I knew why that notebook never left her purse. And I knew that once the court heard the recording hidden inside the silver clock, Victoria Sterling's laugh would become the first thing everyone remembered before her story fell apart. Before I take you deeper into this case, make sure you are subscribed for more powerful courtroom stories like this. Comment below and tell me where you are watching from, because this case turned on a witness one rich woman believed was too ordinary to matter. Stay with me, because the person Victoria mocked was the only reason the truth survived. On paper, the case looked small. Clara Bennett was suing Victoria Sterling for unpaid wages, a destroyed phone, medical bills after being pushed, and damage to her reputation after Victoria accused her of stealing a diamond brooch from Victoria's mother, Eleanor Sterling. Eleanor was 86 and recovering from a stroke when Clara became her caregiver. Clara gave medication, prepared soft meals, and kept the bedroom bell within Eleanor's reach. Victoria called Clara an opportunist, a fraud, a woman who saw an old mansion and decided there must be something inside worth taking. Then she said Clara stole a diamond brooch the week Eleanor changed her will. That detail mattered. Victoria tried to make the brooch the whole case. It was not. The brooch was the weapon. The will was the motive. Ruth Coleman was the witness Victoria never expected to speak. Clara sat at the plaintiff's table in a simple gray blazer. A faint bruise faded near her wrist, and beside her was a plastic bag containing her cracked phone. She did not look angry. She looked tired. Real humiliation does not always arrive in tears. Sometimes it sits very straight and waits for someone to stop repeating the lie. Victoria arrived in cream silk, pearls, and the confidence of a woman who believed the room would organize itself around her. When the clerk read the claim, she smiled as if the numbers were insulting. Clara's eyes lowered for half a second. That was the first wound, not the money, not the phone. The accusation I asked Victoria when she first believed Clara had stolen the brooch. The night mother became confused and started talking about changing documents. Changing what documents? My mother says many things. She had a stroke. That was not my question. Victoria's smile tightened. She mentioned her will. Victoria's attorney objected when I asked about the will. I told him motive often stands behind conduct. Victoria said, "Mother never properly changed anything." Properly. She was being influenced by Clara, by everyone around her. I looked at Ruth. Victoria did too, and that was when she laughed. Ruth had worked in the Sterling home for 22 years. She cleaned, opened deliveries, mended loose buttons, and knew which hallway boards creaked after midnight. People like Victoria call that background work because it happens while they are not looking. But background work teaches a person the house. Ruth knew where Eleanor kept the silver clock. She knew Eleanor had placed a small recording device inside it after fearing someone was entering her room while she slept. That clock would matter later. At that moment, I wanted Victoria's version. She claimed she came to the house at 8:30 p.m. Clara was in the hallway with a bag. Eleanor was agitated. The brooch was missing from the dressing table. Victoria said Clara refused to open her bag. Clara said that was false. According to Clara, Victoria entered Eleanor's bedroom shouting about the will. Eleanor demanded that Victoria leave. Victoria grabbed Clara's phone when Clara tried to call Eleanor's attorney. Then Victoria pushed Clara against the dressing table and later claimed the brooch was inside Clara's bag. I asked Clara whether the brooch had been in her bag. "No, Mom." "Did anyone search it in front of you?" "No." Mrs. Sterling took it into the hallway. Victoria rolled her eyes. She was not listening to testimony. She was waiting for status to do its work. I asked Victoria whether she removed Clara's bag, touched Clara's phone, pushed her, or spoke to Eleanor's attorney that night. No, absolutely not, no. 4 firm denials. Liars love firm denials when they think proof is weak. Then I asked about Ruth. "Was Ruth Coleman present?" Victoria looked amused again. "Ruth was always somewhere around the house." "Was she in the hallway?" "I do not keep track of staff wandering around." That answer reduced 22 years of service to wandering. When someone cannot destroy a witness, they try to make the witness smaller before the witness speaks. I asked Ruth to step forward. Victoria laughed under her breath. That was her mistake. Ruth opened the black notebook. On the first page was the date Eleanor asked her to start recording unusual visits and raised voices. The first entry was not about Clara. It was about Victoria. Beside that entry, Ruth had taped a tiny pearl button from Victoria's cream jacket, the same jacket Victoria wore the night she claimed she never entered the dressing room. I looked at Victoria's sleeve. One pearl button had been replaced with plastic. Her smile faded. I had not played the clock recording yet. I had not shown the hallway photograph. And I had not revealed why Eleanor changed her will after hiding one sealed envelope under the silver tray. But Victoria Sterling had already told me who she feared most in that courtroom. Not Clara, not me. Ruth Coleman. Because Ruth had spent 22 years being treated as invisible, and invisible people see everything. Ruth Coleman had spent 22 years learning the Sterling household. She knew which cabinet contained Eleanor's medication. She knew which floorboard near the library made a sharp sound when stepped on. She knew Victoria hated anyone touching the silver clock because it had belonged to Eleanor's husband. Most importantly, Ruth knew something Victoria forgot. People who serve in wealthy homes often become invisible, and invisible people notice everything. Victoria believed Ruth's job made her insignificant. That was why she laughed. She assumed a housekeeper's testimony would sound like a personal complaint instead of evidence. But Ruth did not come into my courtroom with anger. She came with dates, times, diddles, and a notebook Eleanor had asked her to keep. I asked Ruth when she first noticed something was wrong. 3 months before the brooch disappeared, she said, "What happened?" Mrs. Sterling asked me to sit with her after breakfast. She said she was worried someone was entering her room when she was not awake. Victoria immediately shook her head. She was paranoid. I looked at Victoria. "Did I ask you?" She stopped. That was another mistake. People who feel control slipping often interrupt because silence feels dangerous. Ruth continued. Mrs. Sterling did not believe everyone was against her. She believed one person was taking advantage of her. Did she name that person? Yes. Who? Ruth looked toward Victoria, her daughter. The courtroom became quiet. Victoria smiled, not because she was calm, because she needed everyone to believe she was. My mother had dementia. I asked Ruth whether Eleanor had been diagnosed with dementia. No. Victoria's attorney objected. He argued Ruth was not qualified to discuss medical conditions. That was fair. I agreed. But the question was not whether Ruth could diagnose Eleanor. The question was whether Victoria was using an accusation to erase a witness. I asked whether Eleanor knew the date, location, and purpose of the conversations Ruth recorded. Yes. Did she recognize family members? Yes. Did she manage her own decisions? Yes. Victoria looked away. The medical records later confirmed Eleanor's doctor documented memory issues after the stroke, but found her capable of making financial and legal decisions. That mattered, because Victoria's entire defense depended on one idea, that Eleanor's wishes did not count. I asked Ruth about the night of the missing brooch. She opened her notebook, 8:12 p.m. Mrs. Sterling's daughter arrived. Victoria said, "That proves nothing." Ruth continued, 8:18 p.m. I heard raised voices from upstairs. Whose voices? Mrs. Sterling and Victoria. What were they saying? Ruth looked down. Mrs. Sterling said, "You cannot force me to sign something I do not want." Victoria's attorney objected. He argued it was hearsay. I allowed the statement only to show the context of the event, not as proof of the legal document itself, but the timing mattered. The argument happened before the brooch accusation. Victoria was not visiting to discover a theft. She was arriving during a conflict. I asked Ruth what happened next. At 8:27, Clara went upstairs because Mrs. Sterling pressed the assistance bell. Was Victoria still there? Yes. Was Clara carrying a bag? Yes. What kind? A small medical bag, not a handbag, not a purse, a medical bag containing gloves, medication notes, and supplies. The same bag Victoria later claimed held a stolen diamond brooch. I asked whether Ruth saw Clara take anything from Eleanor's room. No. Did you see Victoria take anything? Ruth paused. Then she answered carefully. I saw Victoria remove a folder from Mrs. Sterling's desk. Victoria's expression changed, only slightly, but enough. What folder? I asked. I don't know the contents. Where did Victoria take it? She put it inside her coat. The will. That was the document behind the entire argument. Victoria was not searching for a brooch. She was searching for control. I asked whether the folder was later found. Ruth shook her head. No. Victoria laughed again. She is guessing. Ruth looked at her. No, Mom, I was there. The difference was simple. Victoria had assumptions. Ruth had presence. I displayed the photograph from the hallway camera. Victoria's attorney had previously claimed the camera showed nothing useful because the angle did not capture the bedroom. That was true. It did not show the bedroom. It showed the hall. And in the hallway image, Victoria stood holding a brown folder. Her coat pocket was open. The same pocket where Ruth said she placed the folder. Victoria stared at the image. Then she said the words, I expected. That could be anything. It was a reasonable argument. One photograph does not prove everything. But evidence rarely arrives alone. It arrives piece by piece. A folder, a missing will, a changed story, a witness, a recording device, and one woman who laughed because she believed none of those pieces mattered. I asked Victoria if she had taken any documents from Eleanor's room. No. Any folder? No. Any papers? No. 3 more denials. Then I asked, why did you replace the missing pearl button on your jacket the next morning? Her face froze. For the first time, she looked toward her attorney before answering. My clothing is irrelevant. Is it? Yes. Then why replace only one button? She said nothing. I displayed the repair receipt. The alteration shop had replaced one pearl button at 9:15 the morning after the incident. The receipt listed the color, ivory pearl, the same missing button Ruth found near Eleanor's dressing table. Victoria's attorney argued that thousands of jackets used similar buttons. Again, he was right. One button alone was not enough, but it was another piece. The question was not whether one piece proved the case. The question was why every piece kept pointing in the same direction. I turned toward Victoria. You said the camera could not prove you entered the room. I said it could not prove theft. Interesting. Why? Because I never said the camera showed theft. Victoria stopped. She had done it again. She knew more about the evidence than she should. I asked how she knew what the camera could and could not prove. Her attorney interrupted. But the damage was already done. Victoria Sterling had spent the morning laughing at a witness she thought was beneath her. She did not realize that every time she underestimated Ruth, she revealed another piece of the truth. Then Ruth reached inside her notebook and removed a small envelope. She said Eleanor gave it to her the night before the argument. The envelope had one sentence written on the front: "For whoever says I was too confused to know the truth." Victoria stopped smiling because inside that envelope was not another accusation. It was Eleanor's own voice. The envelope sat on the evidence table between two women. One woman believed money could control the room. The other woman had spent 22 years quietly protecting someone else's truth. Victoria Sterling stared at the envelope, not with confusion, with recognition. That was the moment I became certain. She knew exactly what Eleanor had left behind. I asked Ruth where the envelope came from. "Mrs. Sterling gave it to me the evening before the argument." "Why?" "She said if anyone questioned her memory, I should give it to the court." Victoria immediately shook her head. "My mother was frightened and manipulated." "By whom?" I asked. Victoria hesitated. "By people around her. Again, everyone else was responsible, everyone except her." I asked Ruth to open the envelope. Inside was a small digital recorder, 3 handwritten pages, and a photograph of Eleanor signing a document. Victoria's attorney stood. He argued the material had not been properly authenticated. That was a fair concern. Evidence must be reliable. So I asked the clerk to verify the chain of custody. The recorder had remained sealed in Ruth's possession until it was delivered to the court. The handwritten pages were examined by an expert who confirmed they matched Eleanor's writing from previous years. Then I asked the question Victoria feared. "Did you know your mother kept a recorder?" "No." Too fast. I looked at her. "You said your mother was confused. How would a confused person secretly record conversations?" Her attorney objected. I allowed the objection. But the question remained in the room. Victoria knew Eleanor was not as helpless as she wanted everyone to believe. That was why the will mattered. That was why the brooch mattered. That was why Clara had to be discredited. I asked the clerk to play the recording. At first, there was only quiet. Then Eleanor's voice, Victoria, I need you to understand something. I will not sign away control of my finances." The courtroom became still. Victoria's face changed. It was no longer confidence. It was calculation. Eleanor continued. "You keep telling people I cannot remember, but you remember enough to ask me for documents." A pause. Then Victoria's voice. "You are making this harder than it needs to be." Eleanor replied, "No. I am making sure my choices remain mine." Those words were simple, but they destroyed Victoria's entire story. The recording did not show a confused elderly woman. It showed a woman setting boundaries. Victoria's attorney tried to interrupt the recording, but I allowed it to continue. Victoria's voice became sharper. "You do not understand what happens when people think you cannot manage yourself." Eleanor answered, "I understand exactly what happens. They stop listening." Walter's case involved grief. Clara's case involved accusation. But Eleanor's case involved something many elderly people fear: losing control of their own life because someone decides they are no longer capable of making decisions. I asked Victoria if she recognized the voice. "Yes." "Your mother?" "Yes." Was she confused in that recording? Victoria looked down. She had good moments. That answer was carefully chosen. I asked whether those good moments included understanding her finances. She had help. From whom? Victoria did not answer because the answer was her. The person who claimed Eleanor was incapable was the same person trying to gain control over her decisions. I displayed the second page from the envelope. Eleanor had written, Victoria asked me to sign documents transferring authority. I refused. The date was 2 days before the brooch disappeared. The timeline was becoming clear. Victoria needed Eleanor's signature. Eleanor refused. Then the brooch accusation appeared. The accusation was not the beginning. It was retaliation. I asked Victoria why she believed the brooch was missing. Because Clara had access. Did Clara have access to the dressing room? Yes. Did you? Victoria paused. Yes. Did you have access to the drawer where the brooch was stored? Yes. Did Clara? No. The answer came before she realized what she admitted. Victoria had just confirmed she had greater opportunity than the person she accused. I asked why she did not report the missing brooch immediately. I was trying to protect my mother by accusing her caregiver, by finding the truth. Did you call police? No. Did you call insurance? No. Did you search your own belongings? No. Why? Victoria looked uncomfortable because she had not been looking for a missing item. She had been building a story. I asked about Clara's phone. Victoria claimed she never touched it. But the phone records showed Clara's device was disabled at 8:42 p.m. A manual password attempt had been made 3 times. The attempts occurred while the phone was in Victoria's possession. Her attorney argued that anyone could have handled it. The problem was that the phone had been inside Victoria's handbag for 7 minutes before Clara recovered it. A security camera from the entrance hallway showed Victoria taking the phone from Clara's hand after the argument. Ag and Victoria had an explanation. I was trying to stop her from recording my family. That sentence mattered because earlier she claimed she never touched the phone. Now she admitted she did. I asked, so you did take the phone to stop a misunderstanding. Did you delete anything? No. The forensic report showed one audio file was deleted at 8:44 p.m. A recording Clara had started when Victoria entered Eleanor's room. Victoria's face tightened. She had not known the file was recoverable, but modern devices remember more than people expect. The deleted audio contained only 26 seconds. 26 seconds were enough. The first sound was Eleanor saying, "Put the folder back." Then Victoria, "I am your daughter." Eleanor, "That does not give you permission." Then Clara's voice, "Mrs. Sterling, should I call your attorney?" A chair moved, a sharp sound. Then silence. The recording ended. It did not capture the entire confrontation. It did not need to. It proved the argument existed. It proved Victoria was in the room. It proved the folder mattered. And it proved Clara's first statement was accurate. Victoria laughed quietly, not because she was amused, because she was cornered. "You are all acting like I committed some terrible crime because I wanted to help my mother." I looked at her. Helping someone does not require taking away their choices. She looked away. The woman who mocked Ruth had underestimated the witness. The woman who dismissed Eleanor had underestimated the recording, and the woman who believed the phone was erased had underestimated technology. But I still had one question. Where was the diamond brooch? Because until that was answered, Victoria still had one argument left. She claimed she may have lied about Clara. She claimed she may have been wrong about the phone, but she insisted the brooch was still missing. Then the clerk brought forward a final evidence bag. Inside was a velvet jewelry box recovered from Victoria's home. And when the lid opened, the courtroom finally understood why Victoria had laughed so confidently. She knew the brooch was never lost. The velvet jewelry box was placed on the evidence table. Victoria Sterling stopped breathing for a moment, not because she was surprised, because she knew exactly what was inside. The box was small, dark blue, and familiar. Eleanor had kept the diamond brooch inside it for 12 years. The same box Victoria claimed had disappeared from the dressing room. I asked the clerk to open it. Inside was the diamond brooch, perfectly intact. The courtroom reacted immediately. Clara lowered her eyes. Ruth closed her notebook. Victoria stared at the box as if it had betrayed her. That reaction mattered. People are often shocked by evidence, but they react differently when they recognize evidence they thought was gone forever. I looked at Victoria. "Is this your mother's brooch?" She hesitated. "Yes. Was it missing? Yes. Where was it found?" "In your bedroom," the clerk answered. Victoria's attorney stood quickly. My client did not know it was there, a reasonable argument. But only if the evidence stopped there. It did not. The jewelry box contained more than the brooch. Inside the bottom compartment was a folded receipt from a private jeweler. The date was the morning after the argument. The customer name was Victoria Sterling. The service description, the diamond brooch inspection and cleaning. Victoria's attorney looked down. Victoria looked toward him. Neither spoke. I asked Victoria whether she took the brooch to a jeweler. "No." "Did you own this jewelry box?" "Yes." "Did you store jewelry in it?" "Yes." "Was the brooch inside your home?" She paused. "Yes." "Then why did you tell this court it was stolen?" Her answer came slowly. "I thought Clara had taken it, but the evidence showed something different. Victoria had removed the brooch herself. She placed it in her own jewelry box. Then she accused Clara. The accusation was not a mistake. It was a strategy." I asked when she found the brooch. "I don't remember." That phrase again. Mira had disappeared whenever responsibility arrived. I displayed the jeweler's security footage. Victoria entered the shop at 10:14 a.m. The morning after the confrontation, she handed over the brooch. The jeweler asked, "Is this the Sterling family piece?" Victoria replied, "It will be safer with me." The courtroom became silent. That sentence explained everything. Victoria did not see herself as a thief. She saw herself as the rightful controller of everything connected to her family: the house, the documents, the jewelry, her mother's decisions. I asked why the brooch needed to be safer with her. Victoria looked frustrated. "Because my mother was vulnerable." Again, the same argument. Every time Eleanor made a decision Victoria disliked, Victoria called it vulnerability. Every time Eleanor needed protection from Victoria, Victoria called it help. I asked Ruth whether Eleanor ever gave Victoria permission to take the brooch. No. Did Eleanor ask for it? No. Did Clara ask for it? No. Who had the right to remove it? Mrs. Sterling. The answer was simple. Ownership does not transfer because someone believes they deserve control. I turned back to Victoria. "You said Clara stole the brooch." "Yes." "Did you have evidence?" I had suspicion. Based on what? She was the only person near the room. I looked at Ruth. Was Clara alone in the room? No. Who else was present? Victoria. There it was. The entire case in one sentence. Victoria accused the one person who could tell the truth because Clara had less money, less influence, and no family name to protect her. I asked about Clara's medical bag. The bag Victoria claimed contained the brooch. A forensic search showed no jewelry fibers, no velvet fragments, no traces connected to the box. But Victoria's handbag contained a small velvet fiber matching the jewelry box lining. Her attorney argued she owned the box, so that proved nothing. Correct, a fiber alone proves very little. But this case was not built on one piece. It was built on a pattern: the missing brooch, the false accusation, the stolen phone, the deleted recording, the missing folder, the hidden will. And the witness Victoria laughed at, Ruth. I asked Ruth one final question. When Victoria entered Eleanor's room that night, what was she looking for? Ruth opened the notebook. She asked where Mrs. Sterling kept the documents. Which documents? The ones proving she had changed her will. Victoria's face tightened. Her attorney objected. I allowed Ruth to explain what she personally heard. Ruth continued. Mrs. Sterling told her she would not inherit the house if she continued treating people that way. That was the motive. Not money from the brooch control of the estate. Victoria wanted the will. The brooch was only the distraction. I displayed the copy of Eleanor's updated will. The document named a charity foundation and a caregiver assistance fund as beneficiaries. Victoria was removed. Her inheritance disappeared. The new will was signed 3 days before the confrontation. The same 3 days when Victoria began visiting Eleanor more frequently. The same 3 days when the folder disappeared. The same 3 days when Ruth started writing everything down. Victoria leaned forward. She was manipulated. By whom? By Clara. Where is your evidence? Silence. That question had followed Victoria all morning. Every accusation, no proof, every denial. No explanation, every insult toward witnesses. No replacement truth. I asked Clara whether she knew Eleanor changed her will. No. Did you benefit from it? No. Did you ask Eleanor for anything? No. Her only request had been to keep her job and protect Eleanor. That was the difference between Clara and Victoria. One person cared about Eleanor's choices. The other cared about Eleanor's assets. I turned back toward Victoria. She looked smaller now, not because she had lost money, because the room no longer believed her. The woman who laughed at Ruth had spent the morning proving why Ruth was necessary. The housekeeper remembered, the camera remembered, the phone remembered, and Eleanor had made sure her own voice remembered. But before I delivered the ruling, I needed to address the part that bothered me most, the accusation against Clara, because a false accusation does not disappear simply because the truth is discovered. Someone had damaged her reputation. Someone had made people question her honesty. So someone had tried to make a caring woman look like a criminal, and that someone was still sitting in my courtroom. I looked at Victoria Sterling. Do you still maintain that Clara Bennett stole your mother's brooch? Victoria opened her mouth. This time, no confident answer came. Because the wrong witness had never been Clara. It had always been Ruth. And Victoria finally understood why. Victoria Sterling had spent the entire morning trying to prove one thing, that everyone else was unreliable. Clara was dishonest. Ruth was confused. Eleanor was vulnerable. The camera was incomplete. The phone evidence was unclear. The missing folder was irrelevant. The brooch was misunderstood. Piece by piece, she tried to separate the evidence until nothing connected. But that is not how truth works. Truth does not need every piece to stand alone. It needs the pieces to fit together, and every piece in this case pointed back to Victoria. I asked her one more time, do you still claim Clara Bennett stole your mother's brooch? Victoria looked at her attorney, then at the jewelry box, then at Clara. No. The answer was quiet, the first honest answer she had given all day. But honesty after discovery is not the same as honesty before exposure. I asked why, because the brooch was found. No, I said, that is not why. Victoria looked at me. The brooch was found because the evidence showed where it was. Your accusation failed because you created a story before you had proof. Her attorney attempted to interrupt. I continued. A person can make a mistake. A person can misremember. A person can misunderstand. But Victoria did not simply misunderstand. She built a false explanation around an innocent person. That mattered. I turned toward Clara. She had spent weeks being treated like a criminal. Her employer questioned her. Neighbors whispered. Friends asked whether there was another side. The accusation followed her before the truth did. I asked Clara what happened after Victoria accused her. She called my agency. What did she say? That I was not trustworthy? Was your employment affected? Yes. How? I lost 2 clients because they heard I was accused of stealing. Victoria looked down. The damage was already done before the verdict. Words travel faster than corrections. That is why false accusations are so powerful. The person who makes them often forgets that the person accused still has to live with the shadow. I asked Victoria whether she contacted Clara's employer. Yes. Why? To warn them. About a crime you had no proof of. I believed it. Belief is not evidence. Suspicion is not proof. And confidence is not truth. I found in favor of Clara Bennett on every claim. Victoria was responsible for the false accusation, the damage to Clara's reputation, the destroyed phone, the physical confrontation, and the financial losses caused by her actions. I awarded Clara compensation for lost wages, medical expenses, phone replacement, and the harm caused by Victoria's statements. But the most important part of the ruling was not the amount, it was the record. I ordered the evidence preserved and forwarded for review, the recording, the altered phone file, the hidden documents, the false statements, the jewelry records, all of it. Victoria's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client's reputation will be severely harmed. I looked at him. Reputation is not damaged by discovering the truth. He sat down. Victoria stared at the floor. For the first time, the woman who entered believing she controlled the room looked like someone who finally understood she did not. I turned toward Ruth Ems Coleman. You may have been the most underestimated person in this courtroom. Ruth lowered her eyes. I was only writing down what Mrs. Sterling asked me to remember. That sentence explained everything. She was not seeking attention. She was preserving someone else's voice. People often overlook quiet witnesses because they confuse silence with weakness. But quiet people see patterns. They remember details. They notice what changes. Victoria laughed at Ruth because she saw a housekeeper. She never saw the witness who knew where every lie began. After the hearing, Ruth returned the black notebook to Eleanor's attorney. She did not keep it. She said Eleanor asked her to protect it, not own it. That was Ruth. Even after proving the truth, she wanted nothing from it. Clara received a personal letter from Eleanor that had been stored with the recording. It had been written 1 week before the confrontation. The letter said, Clara, if Victoria ever makes you question yourself, remember that kindness is not weakness. Some people mistake patience for permission. Clara cried when she read it, not because she won, because Eleanor had believed her before anyone else did. Walter, Eleanor's longtime friend, later told me that was always Eleanor's greatest quality. She noticed people who others ignored. That included Clara. That included Ruth. And eventually that included herself. Victoria's life changed quickly after the ruling. Her position in several family organizations was reviewed. The charity board removed her from an advisory role. The estate dispute became public. Friends who once defended her stopped returning calls, but the biggest change was not financial. It was social. For years, Victoria had relied on the idea that people would believe her because of her name. Now people ask questions. They wanted records. They wanted proof. Power is comfortable when nobody examines it. The moment people start looking closely, appearances become fragile. Months later, I received a photograph from Clara. She was standing beside Eleanor's old garden. Ruth was next to her. In the picture, Clara held a small silver frame. Inside was a note Eleanor had written, "Listen to the people who are always there when nobody important is watching." That sentence captured the entire case. Victoria thought important people were the ones with money, titles, and influence. Eleanor knew better. The people who show up quietly often carry the truth loudly. I still remember Victoria's first reaction. The laugh, that dismissive little laugh when Ruth walked toward the witness stand. It was not just arrogance. It was a mistake because Victoria believed the wrong witness had entered the courtroom. She believed the housekeeper would disappear behind her status. She believed wealth could make ordinary people invisible. But Ruth Coleman was never invisible. She was watching. She was remembering. And she was waiting for the moment the truth finally had somewhere to stand. The final piece of evidence remained. The one thing Victoria never knew Eleanor had preserved. A second recording from the silver clock, and on that recording was the conversation that happened after Victoria thought she had already won. The second recording from the silver clock was the evidence Victoria Sterling never knew existed. The first recording showed that Eleanor understood what was happening. The second showed what happened after Victoria thought she had control. I asked the clerk to play it. For several seconds, there was only the sound of footsteps, then Victoria's voice. "I know you changed the will," Eleanor answered calmly. "Yes, you cannot do that without discussing it with me. It is my decision. You are making a mistake." "No, I am correcting one." The courtroom became silent because that was the difference between them. Victoria believed Eleanor's choices needed approval. Eleanor knew they did not. The recording continued. Victoria said, "If you remove me from the estate, people will ask questions." Eleanor replied, "Then let them ask. You think Clara and Ruth will protect you?" "No." A pause. Then Eleanor said the sentence that explained everything. "I think the truth will." Victoria looked down. The woman who spent the morning attacking witnesses now had to sit beside her own words. The recording continued. Victoria's voice became colder. "You are making me look like a villain." Eleanor answered, "I did not make you anything." That sentence stayed in the courtroom because people often blame others for revealing what they have chosen to become. Victoria did not lose control because Eleanor changed her will. She lost control because Eleanor stopped allowing her to have it. I ordered the recording preserved as part of the official record. Then I turned back toward Victoria. "You spent this entire hearing suggesting your mother was incapable of making decisions." Victoria said nothing, but every recording shows the opposite. Silence. Your mother knew exactly what she wanted. More silence, and she knew exactly what she feared. Victoria's attorney stood. He asked for consideration because Victoria had never been convicted of any crime. That was true. A civil judgment is not a criminal conviction. The purpose of the hearing was not to declare guilt beyond the claims before me. It was to determine responsibility for the harm proven in this courtroom, and that responsibility was clear. I ordered that the findings, recordings, financial records, and witness statements be referred to the appropriate authorities for further review. Victoria's actions involved more than a family disagreement. They involved deception, false accusations, misuse of an elderly woman's vulnerability, and an attempt to make an innocent caregiver appear guilty. I looked at Victoria. You believed the most powerful person in the room would always be believed. She remained silent. But power is not evidence. Her eyes moved toward Ruth, the same woman she laughed at, the same woman she believed would not matter. I said, "The person you dismissed was the person who remembered." Ruth lowered her head. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply closed the notebook. That was the final image I remembered. Not Victoria losing, not the jewelry box, not the recordings. Ruth closing a notebook because her work was finished. After the hearing, Clara visited Eleanor's old room one final time before the estate was settled. The silver clock remained on the shelf, the same clock Victoria ignored, the same clock that preserved the truth. Clara told me she almost quit the night of the accusation. She said she could handle losing money. She could handle losing a job. But she struggled with people believing she was capable of stealing from someone she cared for. That is the hidden damage of false accusations. They do not only attack your reputation, they attack your understanding of yourself. Clara kept Eleanor's letter in her home, not because it reminded her of the case, because it reminded her that someone saw her character before the world questioned it. Ruth continued working with elderly families. When people asked her about the courtroom, she always gave the same answer. I only wrote down what happened. But that was not a small thing. Many people see the truth and stay quiet. Many people notice wrongdoing and decide it is not their responsibility. Ruth chose differently. She understood that silence can protect the person causing harm. Months later, Victoria attempted to appeal the civil judgment. Her attorneys argued that the evidence had been interpreted unfairly. The appeal was reviewed. The recordings remained, the documents remained, the receipts remained, the witnesses remained. The truth did not change because someone disliked the result. That is something people with power often struggle to understand. They believe losing means the system failed. Sometimes losing simply means the system finally listened. Victoria eventually sold the family home, the same home where she once believed her name gave her control. The new owner kept Eleanor's garden. They removed the old security cameras. But the silver clock stayed with Eleanor's attorney, not because it was valuable, because it proved something important. Sometimes the smallest objects carry the largest truths: a notebook, a missing button, a phone recording, a clock sitting quietly on a shelf. Victoria laughed when Ruth entered the courtroom because she saw a housekeeper. She did not see 22 years of observation. She did not see loyalty. She did not see courage. She did not see the person who had been trusted with the truth, because she was the one person who never tried to own it. Victoria believed the wrong witness was standing there. She was right about one thing. It was the wrong witness for her, because Ruth Coleman was not there to impress anyone. She was not there for money. She was not there for attention. She was there because an elderly woman asked her to remember. And sometimes justice does not arrive through the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes it arrives through the person everyone ignored, the person who watched, the person who wrote it down, the person who refused to laugh. If this case reminded you that the quietest witness can sometimes carry the strongest truth, like this video, subscribe for more courtroom stories where arrogance meets accountability. Share this story with someone who believes every person deserves to be heard, regardless of their status. Then comment below. When Victoria laughed at Ruth, did you know she had underestimated the wrong person? Because Victoria Sterling thought money made people invisible, but Ruth Coleman proved something different. The truth has a way of finding the person who is willing to protect it.